Today, I hope to prove that beautiful fall decor does not have to be expensive. I'll be decorating my home using recent thrift store and budget friendly finds. One of my best finds was an amazing deal on Facebook Marketplace that I can't wait to show you. Right over there. I'll also be sharing some easy and creative DIY ideas to take your decor to the next level. So if you're ready for some thrifty fall decorating ideas, let's get started.
As many of you know, I've been doing a lot of thrift shopping lately. First, my husband and I visited the historic town of Galena for our anniversary. Then we traveled to Ireland for the Notre Dame Navy football game. Then we went to Indianapolis for a wedding. Now I'm finally home and ready to decorate for fall with all of my finds. Some items need a little upcycling and some are perfect just as they are. Hopefully, I can regain the use of my dining room by the end of today's video. I'm going to start in the foyer, but since I just recently redecorated this space, I'm only going to make a few changes. I started by changing out the flowers in this vintage basket. I bought these bittersweet stems at Kirkland's. They're very nice quality and are on sale for just $3.99. Next, I moved to the top of the cabinet. I just traded out a few decor items for some pumpkins that I had purchased in previous years. Although I love my old lantern, I wanted to try using this wood candle stand that I found at an Indianapolis Goodwill. I like the size and shape, but not the black color, so I gave it a coat of gold metallic spray paint, and when the paint was dry, I lightly distressed it with 220 grit sandpaper. I also added some florals in a terracotta pot that I aged with gardening lime in a past video. I like how these fall touches still coordinate well with my vintage wall art. I thrifted this magnolia wreath a couple years ago at the Goodwill near me. I think the dark green leaves are a good base year-round, and I just like to add flowers to it in the spring and these brown leaves in the fall. I love how it looks hanging on this oversized mirror. It's just hanging from a small command strip hook. The last time I was at my Goodwill, they had a bin full of pretty home goods pillows, and I found this embroidered one that I just added to the bench. I don't often change out the decor in my front living room because it has a very strong color palette that conflicts with most seasonal decor, Christmas being the exception. So all I'm doing in this room is adding this fabulous pillow cover that I found in a little shop in Dublin. Since I've received some comments, I want to express my complete disapproval of fox hunting as a sport. However, I do love the art depicting the dogs and horses. Now to the family room where we spend most of our time. I wanted to change out some of the pillow covers for darker, more autumnal colors. So I first vacuumed the sofa cushions, and I was noticing that they were looking a little flat. So I decided to fluff them up with some extra stuffing. I repurposed the stuffing from some old outdoor cushions that I had replaced with new ones this past spring. I just added a bit of stuffing to each cushion, but it made a big difference in how they look and feel. I had decided I wanted to add some green to the family room to coordinate with the William Morris curtains. I had previously hung these prints with green mats that I thrifted for under $4 each. I also picked up a new throw blanket at HomeGoods and a couple of velvet pillow covers at the Indianapolis IKEA. To add even more green to the room, I changed out an end table for a green cabinet from my front living room. Since the back feet of the cabinet were off of the rug, I put caster cups under the back legs to level it out. Then I just added the fall decor that had been on the previous side table. These were mostly all thrift store finds too. I'm using an old trunk as a side table at the other end of the sofa and wanted to add this unique wood canister next to some old wood spools. Since the trunk has wood ribs, I use a thrift store brass tray to keep everything level. I couldn't believe my luck when I spotted this owl at Goodwill. It looked expensive to me, so I did some research and found these identical owls for sale on Etsy. I thought this brass planter would be a cute way to corral the remote controls. I decorated the coffee table in a previous video, so I just added a wood slice to this shallow basket to keep my candles level, and then filled in around them with potpourri and a few pine cones from my yard. Some of you will remember that I bought 2 vintage landscape prints in Ireland, and I finally decided I wanted to try hanging them in this corner next to the curtains. As a side benefit, if I hung them using the black twine already attached, I could completely conceal the old built-in speaker. It looked a bit crowded at first, but when I removed the old porch post, I could center the pictures on the wall. Although I like the old gold mats, I'm curious how these prints would look without them. However, they won't be easy to remove because there are a lot of nails on the back side. When I bought this little cabinet, the doors were taped shut and I had no idea what it was. But once I could see inside, I decided it was a cabinet meant for pipes and tobacco. Let me know if I'm right or not. I was going to use the cabinet with the doors open, and I didn't like the look of the magnetic door latches, so I just removed them. I added the cabinet to a bookcase and then added some small books, a couple small clocks, and the wool flowers that I bought at a gift store in Ireland. The right-hand side of the bookcase had large, heavy-looking items, so I flipped the books on the bottom shelf to the left side to balance out the visual weight. I think this cabinet looks really cute, and it will be so much fun to decorate for each season. You might remember that I had 2 vintage prints hanging on the wall next to this secretary desk, but I decided it was looking too crowded, so I moved them into the library, and I'm really loving them hanging on the bookcases in there. So I decided to move this much smaller DIY outdoor lantern next to the desk, and I filled it with some dried plants that I picked up at the thrift store a few years ago. This terracotta figurine with the embossed copper skirt really caught my eye at the thrift store. I did a little research and was not surprised to see that she's selling for much more than I paid at Goodwill. I just sat her on this small table with a few books, a ceramic pumpkin, and some old magazine rack spindles that I tied together. You may notice a little black dog in the background of today's video. That's our new puppy, Edgar Poe. As luck would have it, I found the perfect vintage coat rack, which I hung next to the back door to hold Edgar's leash and a basket full of poop bags. This deconstructed velvet chair is probably my favorite spot to decorate, but I haven't updated it since spring. So first I needed to clear everything out but the books. I added some dried daylilly stems from my yard with a few faux stems mixed in. I decided to add the player piano music rolls back in. Then I added some previously thrifted pumpkins and a dried gourd I bought in Galena. I found this unusual metal wreath, which I attached to the chair back using a long corsage pin. To dress up this copper-colored tray, I printed out a vintage image of brown moths, onto a piece of tattoo paper. Each sheet of tattoo paper also comes with its own transparent sheet of transfer paper. To adhere the image to the tray, you apply the sticky transparent sheet over the image and then firmly press it into place. Next, cut out your design and then peel off that transfer paper and finally press the image face down onto the tray. Rub it firmly in place. Then dampen the back side of the paper with a sponge and slide off the back paper. Tattoo paper works just like a water slide decal, but is often about half the price. I kept the chair decor really neutral this fall. Instead, it gets all of its interest from multiple textures. This cute rooster was only $1.99. I'm not sure if it was a small planter or maybe a toothpick holder. In any case, it was the perfect size to hold the roses that I brought home from the wedding in Indianapolis. I frequently see little shelves like this at thrift stores. I assume it was intended to hold a candle. This one was navy blue, and I thought it would look really good in my kitchen. I thought I would dress up this sad little grapevine wreath to attach to the shelf. I cut several dried daylilly leaves from my yard, and then cut each leaf into 4 or 5 smaller pieces. Then I bunched those pieces together, placed the ends on the wreath while still pinching the ends together. Next, I took a piece of twine and tied them to the wreath at a slight angle. As I added each new bundle of leaves, I made sure to slightly overlap the previous bundle. Using florist wire would have been a whole lot easier, but it would have cut through the dry, brittle leaves. Once I had made my way around the wreath and it was completely covered, there were a few spots where I could see the twine, so I just hot glued an additional leaf in those spots to disguise the twine. Then I just used scissors to trim off the ends of the leaves to give the wreath a more symmetrical look. I also hot glued a few faux berries and red leaves onto the wreath for a pop of color. I tied the wreath to the top of the shelf and added a raffia pumpkin pulled from a large bag of faux pumpkins that I also bought at Goodwill. This thrift store floral arrangement had some really nice quality flowers, but I thought this silver piece would make a much prettier vase for them. I also thought the arrangement would look more autumnal if I excluded the yellow roses. I just added flowers to the vase until it was full. I like its natural, somewhat haphazard appearance. I tried it out in a couple different spots and ultimately decided that it looked best next to the red leather chair. I thought this gold frame would look really good next to the bouquet, so I just printed out an autumn poem to put inside. Although it isn't overly fall-themed, I think this simple vignette is one of my favorites this week. I just added a few small touches to the desk next to the red chair. I opened this book to an illustration of brown and orange butterflies, and I added a bittersweet candle ring to the front of the typewriter. I can't resist finely woven vintage baskets when I see them at the thrift store. This one was only 99 cents and the perfect size to hold my collection of dried miniature gourds. I bought this brown botanical candle for under $3, and it was still in its original wrapper. The candle did have a few scratches and dings that were easily smoothed out by blowing my heat gun over it for just a few seconds. Unfortunately, my camera clicked off while I was doing this, but trust me, This trick works like a charm. This unusual round tray has an old quilt piece under a sheet of plexiglass. At some point, I want to try to pop off the plexiglass and clean the quilt because it has some stains. But for now, I'm going to use it to corral several items, including a few amber glass bottles. Those dried flowers were just pulled from my yard. With all the photos on the bulletin board, I try to keep the decor pretty simple on the top of this dresser. I did move my basket full of little dried gourds over here. These small red trunks were a Goodwill find from 2 years ago. When filling small containers like these, I usually start by adding books and florals of some kind. Then I look around for other interesting items to add. This time I chose a small red lantern and a poem decoupage to a wood scrap. But I think the real finishing touch was the colorful thrift store note card that I stuck in the back. This little vignette will be so easy to switch out for Christmas. Okay, I can't wait any longer to show you my Facebook Marketplace find. I paid $55 for this high-end plaid sofa. I know some of you probably hate it, but I'm okay with that because I love it. It has no stains or tears. I am sure this sofa cost a few $1,000s new. The cushions were a little flat, so I decided to add some extra stuffing to these cushions too. For the seat cushion, I bought a twin-size foam mattress topper for $12 at Walmart. I just spread it out on the floor and put the sofa cushion on top and traced around it. Then I cut out the shape and inserted it on the bottom of the cushion. It actually went in much easier than I expected. I used another old patio cushion to add some extra filling to the back cushions. However, I decided to use just one of the back cushions because I like having a variety of pillows. Now, my next task is finding the right rug to go under this plaid sofa. I really struggle selecting the right rug, so I'd love to hear your suggestions. I ordered this one off Amazon, and although its size and color are better, I think I'll be sending it back. I had previously placed a lamp with my new William Morris lampshade next to the sofa, but once the plaid sofa was in place, I didn't like the patterns next to one another. So I had to make a few adjustments, and I moved the lamp next to the red leather chair instead. This also allowed me to use the vintage lamp base that I had wanted to use all along. Thank you so very much for watching today. I truly appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope that I shared an idea or two that will help you to create a home you love on a budget you can afford. Until next Monday, bye-bye for now.